Hey, hello. How are you? I hope everyone's having a fabulous Friday. I'll wait for a second, but we got lots to cover. All right, guys. Today is Finish Friday. Oh, I have an eyeball. Hello. My name is Leonella Cook, and today we are doing the Caproni wrap in a fresco style technique. So we're going to do it a little bit different than you probably have done it before, and then explain how it works. Today's code is Finish Friday 425, and comment, like, share, enter the drawing to win free product, because who doesn't love free product? So again, super glad you could join me. We're going to jump into it. And let's talk about what you're going to need for this particular project. So we need, obviously, your Caproni wrap, which is a linen that is coated, if you guys haven't used it before, in plaster. So this is Paramount. For this particular demo, I like to use ballet white, and because we're working with plaster, it's whiter. I like ballet white. For coloring our fresco, we are going to use pigment powders, and we'll talk about how to add that pigment. You're going to need Venetian plaster, clear. It's really up to you. You could use antique wax or clear wax. We'll need matte sealer, clean slate, all your brushes. Lots of brushes, lots of water. Put an apron on, protect your floor. This is a messy project, but it's so pretty. If you're not familiar with fresco, it's from the ancient Greeks and Romans and Byzantine Empire. Gorgeous Italian Renaissance, building those egg tempera paintings on top of a fresco. So you could see the before piece that I did, and I will show you real quick because I forget to do this with you guys. Here's what we're doing. Do you see how soft? It just has such a soft, really pretty feel to it. And I loved that I combined it. I combined it with a very modern piece of furniture, simple line, clean lines, and it just adds just a really pretty, elegant touch to it. So we're gonna get started. I'm gonna turn you down. If you guys have questions, please put them down below and we will get to them when we can. So let's get started. Here we go. All right, so we are working with just a regular old pine board. So the Caproni wrap is great for non-detailed pieces. I don't recommend doing it on anything with lots of detail. That would be rough. Minimal detail, but yeah. So you're gonna open up that paint. For those of you who are new to this or new to this type of paint, make sure you really stir it. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of the, if it's sat for a while, it will go to the bottom. So make sure you just get your paint agitated, completely combined. Before you begin, always, always, always. And I know I feel like it's so redundant, but if you do not clean your surface, you will have all kinds of problems. Adhesion, maybe it bubbles where you don't want it to, it's never a good thing. So really, I can't emphasize enough, especially if you've stripped a piece, you really need to clean your surface that you're going to work on and just get into the habit of it. And it, honestly, the more you be thorough, the better you are. So we're going to go ahead. I like to do 2 coats of one step. I'm only going to do a section. This is a big board. So I like to cross hatch on when I have a grained wood, just because I know it gets in there. So go ahead. You're going to apply 1 coat and see, especially if you could still see anything through, you want to definitely give yourself another coat. And what's amazing is this paint dries so fast. It's pretty amazing. All right. And so while that's drying, we will go ahead and start prepping for the Caproni and your plaster because you're going to have to mix up some plaster. Lots of bins. Make sure you have your mixer. You will need a trowel. Since we're not burnishing the plaster, we don't necessarily need a metal trowel, but if it's just force of habit, by all means, use your metal trowel, whatever you are happiest with. So we're gonna let that dry for a second. I'm trying to avoid using the hair dryer as much as possible, or the heat gun. So we are gonna take actually I like that one better. We're gonna do some Venetian plaster here, okay? Now, I will warn you, this can irritate your skin a little bit. So if you need to, please wear gloves or, moisturize those hands because nobody likes rough hands. So, all right. For my piece, I used about a cup of plaster, which is not actually a lot. Just get some in there. And we want a consistency of about, I want to say like a sour cream, not so much, not runny. We don't want it too runny. Usually you put water in before, guys, bad form. So let's go ahead. Let that soak in for a second. Especially if you're mixing a big batch of plaster, put your water in first and then put your your plaster in, okay? Because you want to make sure everything soaks it in. Mix it up. All right, take a look, put that in the bath. Always definitely keep a bath for your tools because that plaster will dry and it will become impossible to get off blades and your trowels. I've ruined many. So this is a little too soupy for me, but I'm gonna let that sit for a minute and let that kind of soak in. Also, tip, if you guys have never mixed plaster before, do not, Venetian plaster, do not mix it with hot water. you will immediately start it to set. So you always use cool water. I don't think, anybody really talks about that, which is kind of funny. So I'd like that a little bit thicker. Let's see if it sets up a little bit. We'll try to let that set up. We're going to talk about our pigment. So when we are going to pigment, so this is Fresco essentially. There is no animal glue or any kind of adhesive or binder. So what's happening is the pigment is slacked in water, typically overnight, which I've already done for you guys. So you slack your pigment, you decide, and what I love about working with pigments is you really can come up with your own colors and it can be super unique. I did a seafoam green on mine and it has like a little bit of that bright, I like the blue undertone in it. So you make your own pigments. You'll start off, what you see, it's not going to be as dark, but depending on how much pigment you slack, will affect that. So go ahead and you're going to put, you want to have less, start with less, here, and we'll do one so I could show you. So you want less water, you want less pigment. So for like a small little project, really not much. Do like maybe 2 teaspoons and work from there. And then we're gonna, so what you're wanting a really loose color. And this is kind of important for lime washing too, guys. So, just really nice and loose. Let that sit overnight. And then everything should look at this really pretty color green. If you're working with Prussian blues or blues like this, I do recommend vodka. Blues have a tendency to not want to dissipate in water. So if you're having trouble and you don't want streaks, vodka. All right, look at this. And now we're back over here, cruising right along. This is actually dry to the touch. Fantastic. I am not going to do 2 for this one, but I recommend doing 2 coats of your base color. But we're just going to move on. We are going to take our Caproni wrap. And I don't think anyone's talked about this either. If you look at this wrap, on one side, it's very thick. On one side, it's really thin. And I tested it doing it both ways, and I actually liked it best with that thick side up. And the reason I liked it more up, I ended up with, you have to really soak it in order to dissipate some of those giant clumps. So I actually liked it up, and it worked better when I had to, because if you see, it doesn't cover the entire span. So you do have to do some overlapping. And by ensuring that this was up, I could easily fuse the pieces together. So if you're having to fuse a lot of line, like rows, then I would do it up. I liked it up. There was less clumps underneath. I was a little frustrated when I did it with the bubbly face up down, and I found myself trying to lift it after I've already applied it. So, all right, just checking on our time. So when you measure out for your piece, go ahead and give yourself at least, just like when you're sewing, you want to give yourself at least an inch to 2 inch, because if you have to readjust, but also when it gets wet, it restricts. And so it's a little bit harder, and it's maybe not as wide. So give yourself a little leeway when you're measuring. So don't be exact. Don't measure to the edge perfectly, because there's a chance it's not going to cover. And now you have to figure out how to, cover up your mistake. So make sure you give yourself enough, a little bit of overage on all edges. That way you can always cut back. So we're going to just pretend that's our edge here. And then we're going to go ahead and cut an overlap for here. And so we're just going to cut. All right. So I've seen a couple of different ways this is done. And so we're going to pretend this is the articchio, the base of the fresco, where we're going to build up. So because typically in a fresco, you start with a base coat. This is essentially our base coat here. And fresco means fresh in Italian, if you guys learning my Italian as we go. So I have a bucket of water. You can use a brush. You can use a sponge, a regular old sponge, or a brush. And I'll do both so you can see the difference. So we're gonna lay out our material. It's here, and see we already have an overlap. So I'm not gonna worry about it right now. I'm gonna let this be an overlap, and we'll cut it down as we go. But I know I have enough to finish this section. All right, so I'm gonna show you what I did the first time. Go ahead, we dumped it in water. The only problem with doing something like this is if it's a long strip, guess what? Now you have to deal with a wadded mess. I know, I'm gonna teach you guys what I did, what I shouldn't do, what you should do. That way you don't have to make the same mistakes I made. And so as you see, do you see how the texture is really great on one side versus the other? And that's going to be a lot of brushing. So we're going to put that less textured side down first. All right, we're laying it down. Guys, super messy. I know. But I promise you it's worth it. It's such a beautiful finish at the end. It's so soft. It's so feminine. And if you want to, the potential to add more to this is just, the sky's the limit. So take your brush, and you're just going to brush this out. Smoothing it out as you go. And just pulling. And be careful, because you can, it is still a linen. You can absolutely rip it. So don't be so rough. Got to be a little gentle. And then rinse that brush out, because you're picking up all that plaster. So it's a little bit of a negative tool as you move it around. Excellent. So now we're going to move into that next spot. So if there's any bumps that you like, you could actually just press them out if you like. Just make sure there's no hard clumps. That's really what you don't want. So now you're gonna line up your edge. I'll pull this out. Whoop. You're gonna line up your edge. You want a little bit of an overlap. And what I like about doing this as a fresco, because we're gonna put plaster on top of it, you can actually minimize any of these seams because sometimes they're just unsightly or in the wrong space. So there is a way to manipulate it so it doesn't look so poignant. So get it as close to the edge as you can with a tiny bit of overlap. You can cut this straight if you like, or you can keep it there, but it should be okay. Now, when you're doing an edge, don't soak your piece. What I want you to do is actually use your brush. And you're gonna be really gentle because the seam can move. And once you start moving the piece that's already set, then we have problems. So just smoothing it out. Again, here we're using cool water. We're not using hot water. Hot water forces a quick reaction and your plaster, the Venetian plaster will start, everything will start to set really a lot faster than you intended. And then nothing is movable or workable. So just really easy, smoothing it out. Go back over. And then take your brush in the long strip, you're gonna take it down the seam and just gently pressing down like this. We're gonna minimize that gap and any fray that you see and just bringing it down along the seam. And see, that really does help minimize that. All right, so from here, we're gonna go back over to our plaster. Let that sit for a second. Let's take a look at our Venetian plaster. And I want you to see, remember how soupy it was? You let it sit because now we have the perfect consistency. It's not completely runny, but it's like a nice yogurt. So there's your Venetian plaster. Now, because there is no binder or any kind of natural or the reaction, it's a chemical reaction called carbonation. So what's happening as a plaster dries, the pigment dries into it and it becomes one solid uniform finish. So that when you do a fresco, it must be done in one day. It can't, and then otherwise you're moving into secco fresco and all the other frescoes. But so this is a traditional fresco style. So we're going to take our trowel and you can let this dry, actually let the first coat dry. And then as we move into the color base, that's when we have to keep it wet. So, but I'm going to work with it wet. You can let it dry. If you let it dry, come back with a spritzer. You want to spray your base down. You want to get this moist enough and then come back with your plaster. But we're going to come from here. And plaster really does best on its own drying. It really doesn't need help. Put a fan on it. Don't, by forcing heat, you're going to end up cracking. So we're going to bring this down. Start from the top of your piece and bring it down. And again, we're not burnishing. We're just kind of doing this layer. And if you want texture here, you may. If you want to add in a little bit of some kind of very vague design or you could do it with your plastic trowel too, because we're not burnishing. So just kind of moving it around. You don't want giant gaps, but here, this is where we're going to hide that seam. So you're going to take your Venetian plaster and you're going to come over. And the process, the whole thing is I actually don't want to cover up the Caproni wrap. I think it's really beautiful to have that kind of peeking through. So not having a uniform plaster finish all over that Caproni wrap, I think it adds even more texture, even more interest to see what's underneath it. So just kind of covering up. And so this is the point where I might have to force heat because you want the plaster to get to that. It's almost like an opaque like a, it's not as translucent as you can see. I'm going to put you guys closer, see if you can see it. You want it to be almost like where you see it drying. And that is where we're going to add that pigment, where that carbonation chemical reaction, natural chemical reaction will happen. And that is what's going to hold this all together. So I am going to add a little bit of heat just to kind of speed things up here. All right, see, that happened pretty quick. Just a little bit of heat and we start to get that to set. So you're going to constantly agitate with your color and you're going to add it in to your wet plaster and just painting it in. I probably would like it a little more dry. I'm going to probably dry it just a little bit more. Some spots are dry. Hold on. One sec. All right. And the point is you don't want to see brush strokes, not brush strokes, brush strokes. So go ahead, paint it on. See, as you're painting it on, it will pick up the texture of from your trowel. And then if you want to pull back on the color, you take a Seawell sponge, dunk that in water. Don't hit it when it's dry. Now this is going to be your negative tool where you manipulate your surface and your color. And we're just kind of pulling it back. We're taking away some of the texture from the brush. And it looks dark now, but it's going to dry a bit lighter. So keep that in mind. What's so forgiving about this is that you can come back while the plaster is still wet and do another color until you can you find where you're really happy with it. But if you use more pigment, it doesn't necessarily mean it's you reach saturation level where you can no longer, the pigment and the water, it's too much. So you're ending up with more pigment instead of a colored water. Does that make sense? I don't know. Okay. And so it's just very easily letting that dry. And we're going to come back. Remember, constantly wash that sponge out. Guys, you could do this on your wall. It's so beautiful. And then add art to it. You could do this to furniture and add art to it. I mean, it's just a great foundational base. You could put artwork on this. So let's try that out. All right. I also want you to take a lint-free rag, and then we're going to work with our brush a little bit more. You're going to take some of that paint off of it, and then you can also manipulate any pattern before it completely starts to dry. If you want to add in any patterns, where's that sponge? And really play with this. You guys could do a multicolor if you wanted. So you would have to do another layer of that plaster and then go ahead and add more pigment. But it's all layering and laying. The real concept here is laying in the pigment while that Venetian plaster is still wet. So as far as finishing, I'm going to take you over here so we can look at a finished piece. So here you guys can see what instead of just putting wax on it, because it's a tabletop. And so my concern was just wax wasn't going to give enough protection. What I did do was a matte sealer. So I'm going to do an edge so you guys can watch that. I will do a matte sealer for you as I hold you up. Okay. All right. So matte sealer it dries down completely to a nice matte finish, and you do not have to worry about yellowing or any for scissors. I'm so bad. Sorry guys. I can't seem to open this can. Hold on. Technical difficulties. One sec. Put you down so you can see. All right. There we go. Matte sealer. So matte sealer dries really nice, really clear. I actually it's a new formula. It's definitely not the same one. So I really like this new one. It's really cool. And it's definitely has more protection. So when you're adding matte sealer, I want you guys, you can either use a sponge brush or you can use your bristle brush, but going in the direction of how you laid your Caproni wrap down. And see, I'll show you where I made a mistake. I'm going to show you this. And this is why I'm telling you guys, you need to soak your pigment overnight. And that blue, if you're doing a blue, go ahead and put that in Vaca. Vaca worked and it looks, here, I'll show you the other side. So I did the sides after soaking it in Vaca and I didn't have any of that blue speck. So Prussian blues, some greens don't want to mix as well. Oop, I just broke my camera. And then guys, go ahead. You're going to do, after your top layer dries, you're going to add some wax. And we'll do that over here on our finished piece. We've got our light wax. I'm trying to hold this and do this at the same time. I just broke my camera stand for the second time. There we go. You guys are so patient. All right, so you're gonna take that brush. And so what you could do clear wax, you could do light wax. It's up to you. I'm gonna take you over here. And you're just gonna gently go across. Gently, gently. Now the light wax will add a little bit of an antique look to it. So if you'd like, you could do clear wax and we're just going all over. And that's it, guys. It is so simple. It is a great finish. And if you guys have any questions, this is a great way to build other finishes and if you want to add art to it. So again, 425 is your code. It's really hot in here. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. 425, like, share, comment, enter the drawing for free product. And again, here is your finished piece, guys. If you're worried about edges, add gold leaf. Look at that. It's a more finished look. So thanks, guys. Take care. Bye now.